Hello and welcome to another Havoc Sons video. Well, this video is going to be kind of short and sweet. Here we have a 2001 Chevy Cavalier, and then you have to excuse the wind, and I mean we've got looks like a pretty big storm a brewing. But anyway, the reason why I'm shooting this video is, as you can see, this car is pretty clean inside and out. See if I can open her up. Pretty straightforward. Nothing to brag home about. Why am I shooting this video, you wonder? Well, let me tell you. It all started because of this beast right here. She gets roughly between 9 and 12 miles to a gallon. This is the very rare, see right here, 5.9 liter V8. This is called the Magnum. It's a pretty big engine inside this Jeep. So for a daily driver, I don't really want to use it for a daily driver. So I needed a beat up car. And here we have a beat up car. 2001 Chevy Cavalier with a 2.2 liter 4-cylinder overhead cam engine. Roughly gets between 30 and 34 miles to a gallon. This one gets closer to 34. I've done a few things to it to make it do that, and I'm going to go over some of that with you right now. Now, I got the idea from Scotty Kilmer about driving a beater as a daily runner, go back and forth to work, and it's comfortable, and I put a nice sound system in it, and it's pretty dependable. So, how I acquired this car. I actually got this car at an auction, but I didn't pay anything for it. And you can do that. You just have to be patient. I sat pretty much all day long at this auction house when they went after car was being sold. Some of them was a great deal. I have bought a couple of different cars that way. I bought my daughter's Camry. It's just been a great car for her. But this particular car, I had my eye on it because I know the motor, and they're pretty solid as far as Chevy motors go. And there isn't really a whole lot that's wrong with this car, I mean as far as production, other than it has 2 world records for Chevy. Yes, it does. One of them is, it's the most sold Chevy car ever made. The other one is, it is the most dangerous car Chevy has ever made, being that it has killed, more people have died in the Chevy Cavalier than any other Chevy product. That would deter most people. But most people, I think, drive a little bit weird. Especially the kids that are just getting their license and they're not schooled in defensive driving. This is a pretty gutsy engine. I mean, its torque is high. It zips around. Unfortunately, it's 0 to 60 is pretty nice, so it'll zip around and it'll get you into trouble. And there's really nothing in the sidewalls here. So if you look over, the doors have no metal on them per se. So what happens is when they get T-boned, especially on the driver's side, but even in the passenger side, if they get T-boned, you're pretty much dead. So, I mean, I don't drive it like a maniac, and I don't put myself in trouble. So I'm totally fine with that record. I think it's kind of cool. I tell everybody, yeah, it's got 2 world records. Most sold Chevy, and most deadly Chevy. And they think I'm a maniac for driving it. One of the other things I did, I don't know if you can see that sticker over there, the K&N filter. I put that on, gave me a few more ponies. Okay, so let me tell you what was wrong with it. The biggest problem, why it didn't sell, is it wouldn't go into reverse and the transmission made some horrible grinding noises. That would scare most people away. And the battery was dead, so you had to jump it to start it. And when you started it, it would throw up water right here. So the water pump was gone. And it would smoke. But here's what I noticed. First of all, it was leaking water right here. Okay, big deal. Water pump. Like $20 on this thing. Valve cover gasket on these cars, especially because this is an aluminum valve cover and they only have, I think, 8 bolts holding the whole thing in. It's not enough and they leak. So when you put a new gasket on, always put a little more sealer on it. So I bought a gasket that cost me $7. And of course I bought a battery, which batteries are expensive. It's $130, I think. 130 to 150. I bought it at O'Reilly's. And I dropped the transmission pan and changed the fluid and changed the filter. And guess what? That stopped the noise and now it shifts in reverse perfectly. And there is absolutely nothing else wrong with it. It ran great. And all of a sudden, when I went to Smog, it wouldn't pass Smog. So let me go over briefly. Water pump is right over here. Take off. What you do is you loosen it up here, raise it up a little bit, and you can pull it out without doing a whole lot. Valve cover, there's a lot of videos on that. That's pretty easy. Just take this off, move it over, take off the bolts, and boom, it comes right out. Battery self-explanatory. But I had another problem. Wouldn't pass Smog. That almost broke the bank because I don't want to put a lot into it. But I don't know if you can see that bright and shiny little piece right there. That's an O2 sensor. That's an upstream O2 sensor. Excuse me, I just kicked you. If you're going to replace one, that's the one to replace. That cost me about, a little over $80. That was my big expense other than the battery. So, how did I get this car? They were getting ready to tow it. So, as they were beginning to tow it, I always like to look at those cars. Bear with me here. It was starting to I was getting wind on my video, so I changed my microphone and I put it in an area where it isn't as windy. They were getting ready to take it to the wrecking yard, salvage yard, where they part them out. But the thing about the smaller cars, especially the Cavalier, because there's very little resale value in this car, mostly because of the second world record for Chevy, makes them almost impossible to resell these cars. And I know that, but I also know that it's got a very solid motor in it, and they run. You can get 250,000 miles off this engine if you treat it right. And this one sounded good. So I told them that I would take it off their hands. He said, well, give me $100 for it. And I said, how about I just take it off your hands? So they talked for a while and they decided, okay, sure, they would do that. So that's how I ended up with this car. Now, granted, this doesn't always happen. You have to get the right car. And I know the Cavalier is one of those cars that not too many people want. And this one was clean, never been hit. The engine sounded strong. So all total, with the repairs, and I wasn't looking to replace the O2 sensor. That kind of threw me a little over budget. I wanted to stay under $400. But with everything, and then I added, of course, the K&N filter, which I don't know if you want to count that. That's like a mod. And I also added some hot plugs, double iridium lasers. They didn't need to be that hot, but I wanted to get a few more ponies out of it. The end result is I got this car up to the maximum stated mileage of 34 miles to a gallon. And it is very squirrely. And I'm over 500 on it. So for $500, I ended up getting this little 2001 Chevy Cavalier with 2 Chevy world records. Granted, it's horrible that people lost their lives, and and Chevy did try to do a lot to make this a little bit safer car. Like the headlights stay on all the time now, and there's a couple of other safety things they did to it, anti-locking brakes, and This is the base model, so it's pretty limited. It only has a 3-speed transmission, automatic transmission. But they did do, well, the sun's coming up. They did do a few things to make it a little bit safer. If you are so inclined to purchase a car or get a car cheap, go to the auto auctions and find one that doesn't sell and it's getting ready to be sent back to the salvage yard. And you got to get a model that has no resale value. So you got to do a little bit of homework. But you can pick up a fine specimen of an automobile. Now, this car was actually modeled out of the Camaro, the body style, the Chevy Camaro. I know I cracked myself up. Anyway, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. You guys have a great day and a better life. See ya.